Glynn Burrows is the owner of Norfolk Tours in England, and he is back on our Big Blend World Travel Party today to give us the inside scoop on what it's like to run a tour company. It's one of our success stories that we do in Big Blend magazine and also in our Parks and Travel magazine. And when we ask people to do these stories, they answer 10 questions that we send them, and then we put it in the magazine. And his answers are going to be featured in the February-March issue of Parks and Travel magazine, so watch for that at nationalparktraveling.com. But we wanted to really get the inside scoop with him because he's been doing this for a while now, and his business has expanded from not only giving tours and folk that focus on family history just in the Norfolk and Suffolk area of England, but he's expanded out to covering all of England. And if you want, you need to go to Scotland, he'll help you out too. Maybe Wales, maybe Ireland, And he really looks at what do people want to see and do when they come to England, and he wants to make sure that you get everything that you need. You have that experience. So everybody, he's also a Big Blend expert contributor. You can read his articles in Big Blend Radio and TV magazine and Parks and Travel magazine. If you go to blendradioandtv.com, you'll see him in our expert department. But go to his website, norfolk-tours.co.uk, and get connected with him. Glynn, how are you doing? It's your second round on today's show, and you still have that cold thing going on. So
we hope
it
just gets on your wick. Really does.
Well, you're getting there. You're getting there.
I know.
You're getting better. It's better than the last 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
but,
well, there you go.
I'm really glad to hear about the expansion. I know that's been going on for about a year now, the expansion. But give everybody a little inside scoop, because whenever you come on the show, you're really helping everybody with their family history or giving people all this knowledge about England, your country. You're like one of the biggest spokespeople, I think, for, keeping the heritage alive and people connecting them with the history, the nature, and the fun stuff, as well, like, going to the beach or, having fish and chips. But what was it that got you started, in 2010 to actually get into this, become a tour guide?
Well, it's a very long story, but it was basically a health problem I had, a very, very long-standing, ongoing mental health problem. And at the end, my GP actually said to me, we can't just keep doing this forever. You need to do something that you love, because basically what I was doing was changing my jobs every year or two because it used to do my head in. So basically he said, look at the pattern that we've been doing since, I think it was from about 1996. So he said, I'm fed up of just, putting you on the club all the time, putting you on the sick. He said, so I'm not going to let you go back to work until you find something that you love. And what I loved wasn't out there, because I needed to do something on my own. I needed to be in charge. I needed to be the one responsible for what was going right and what was going wrong. And it was just such a change in my life. And, I often say to people, that I used to sit up the corner rocking backwards and forwards crying. And since I've worked for myself, touch wood, I haven't done that. I have not done that since. And it must be a lot to do with just being happy, just doing something I love. And it was lovely that one of the girls, I don't know which one it was, he said that she just followed her passion. I just wish that someone at school had told me that I had to follow my passion and not just do a job because I needed the money. I needed to do something I love. So, and that's what I do today. I haven't worked since 2010. I've just earned money doing what I love.
I love to hear that, and the frustration that comes for people that, that you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to go, there's this, formula that everybody's supposed to fit into, when you're in school, and, it's like, you will do this, you will do that, and you're like, no, I don't want to do that, I'm interested in this, and maybe that career hasn't even been created yet.
Exactly.
And it's like, when you are not in that zone, we all become the most miserable human beings, not only to ourselves, but to those around us. For when we're not happy, it's just not cool. And I think, and it's also when you said, I want to take charge. And I think that's such an important thing when you said that, because I think that's one of those entrepreneurial qualities is when you want responsibility. So when you say take responsibility on it, it's really about I want to, when you look at your guests, you take around, you're going to make sure they have a good time, and if something's going wrong, you take hold of that. Whether when you're working for somebody else, you may have that passion for customer service, and the boss goes, who cares about that? Just stamp onto the next person. You know what I mean? When you deal with these huge corporations, I don't even want to get started on that, and they just keep passing the buck along to the next person, and no one really helps you. And I think that's something where entrepreneurs get tired of that, and they want to do what they want to do, and you have to take charge. You have to be like a rhino. Oh, I don't want to say that the wrong way. Like, there's some political words on that, but there's that take charge and go for it.
Yes. But, the best thing is that I am responsible. I am responsible if anything goes right, but I'm also responsible if anything goes wrong. And it is fantastic, because if something goes wrong, it's then up to me to fix it. And when I do fix it, it makes me feel good. So it's a win-win situation. Even when things go bad, once I've got over it and fixed it, it then raises up my emotions, my self-esteem. And as anybody who's had mental health problems knows, that the self-esteem thing is one of the main catalysts for mental health problems. If I feel really rubbish about myself, then I'm going to feel rubbish about myself.
It doesn't have to do with a sense of purpose. I mean, because we've done our own businesses in several countries now, and we've also worked for other people. And even if
that didn't last very long.
No,
it never
didn't
does.
last at all.
Never does.
Even though, like when we were selling musical organs, we both love music and we're musicians, and we thought, okay, well, that's kind of a compromise when we came back, to this country, and we really needed to get jobs. And it worked as far as we liked teaching music. That was cool. But what we didn't like was how the management style was. And then as we grew up higher in the company, we could see where they're being a little fishy with the finances. And as soon, I don't know, somehow it just like, okay, I'll go to work because I have to, not wake up, oh, man, I get to do this today. And there is, and when something does go wrong, because, I mean, we have this saying, what could go wrong, and then we know, oh, you said it, now something's going to go wrong, because something goes wrong.
And never say the three words, bring it on. Never say that.
Oh, you just said it.
Oh.
Dude.
Uh-oh. I better not take that 1 hour walk today.
Yeah, really. But, what could go wrong? When things go wrong, you get to be the person to step in and solve it your way without having to go beg somebody else to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you have that feeling of confidence. Every time something goes wrong and you fix it, you gain more confidence.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I think when you work for somebody else, for some of us, it is devastating, especially if you don't like your boss.
Yeah, quite.
It's true. So you have a purpose now, and you're making people so happy.
And you've been doing it for over 8 years now and expanded. Yeah. But let's talk about these being your passions. Was it all started really with the family history part, right?
Well, yes. I mean, I've always been interested in my family history since I was, as we say in England, knee-high to a grasshopper, because I grew up with my aunts and uncles and grandparents, and I knew all my family because they all lived around us. So I sort of grew up knowing that I was a local. And when I started to look at my family history sort of properly in the sort of mid-70s, I started to realise that actually all these stories were based on fact. And my mum's family has actually lived in the same village as my parents still live in, where I grew up, since at least 1620. Wow. Having a connection to one tiny little place in Norfolk for 400 years is quite something. So I then started to be really passionate about local history, because I realised that my family actually were the people who made the village what it is, because
Wow.
they were blacksmiths. They were workers on the farms. They did this, they did that. They went to the churches, and they're buried in the graveyard. And things like that. And I suddenly realised that actually my history, my family history, is local history. So when I started to look around and I started to expand my family history, I found that all of my ancestors on all sides that I've looked at since 1977, when I started it seriously, every one of my ancestors was born and lived within 50 miles of where I live today, where I'm sitting today.
Wow.
They all lived within 50 miles of this spot.
That's amazing.
That's amazing. And that gives me such a feeling of belonging and being part of the soil. I am part of this area, and that is what gives me the passion.
And
that's it's interesting because you probably have some real deep-seated instincts that other people won't have about the area because you are part of it.
Well, I like to think so because all of my ancestors sort of lived here. 90% of the sort of places I go through when I'm driving around this area are places that are connected to my family in some way or the other.
Wow.
So I've got a connection with lots of these different places. And to think, that my ancestors lived here and they were walking around, when the churches were being renovated in the 1700s or whatever, they may have even been the ones who helped to put the lead on the roof, I don't know. But that sort of thing is what I get from going to places, and that's what I want my visitors to get when they go and they can stand by the church where their ancestors worshipped. Or if we're lucky and we've been able to find graves and things like that, we can actually stand beside the person who lived there. That is a really, excuse me,
true connection.
A really funny feeling on the back of your neck. When you're standing beside somebody who died in, say, 1770, and you realise that actually his blood is in you. Now, I've had that experience in Little Plumstead in Norfolk, where a couple of generations of my family were rich enough to afford tombstones in the 1770s and the 1780s. And to stand beside those graves and to recognise the names and realise that actually my blood is down there. Well, it's not anymore, obviously, because he's rotted away. But you know what I mean.
Yeah.
He's actually connected to me. That's fantastic.
That's
what I want to give. That's what I want to give to visitors.
And you do, right? I mean, because you're, when you come on shows over the years, and actually you've been on our shows for quite a number of years, like looking back, and I remember the beginning and what your beginnings of Norfolk Tours, and talking about taking people like the World War II airfields. It's like,
that's
hey,
right.
Americans may come over. Maybe there's a connection that's not just through, a relative being born there, but a relative who served and ended up there during World War II, stationed there, that kind of thing. And there's writers. I know you've talked about writers coming out and doing research, whether it's, looking at the history of some part of the architecture of a chapel or a cathedral.
That's right.
You don't have little chapels in England. You have cathedrals. You know what I mean?
We do have some tiny little churches as well.
I know you do. I know. I was just messing with you. But it's interesting to see this. Go ahead.
The interesting thing about the writer that I had over from Australia was that she actually wanted to sort of trace a journey between sort of one area of ecclesiastical buildings into another. And part of that journey would have been on water. She was researching, this was medieval, a novel that she was writing. So I arranged for us to travel on the water in a sailboat, a very, very small sailing boat. And it was a 1930s pleasure craft, so it weren't a medieval boat. But she said that there was nothing that could have possibly given her that experience to write, because as it happened, it absolutely tipped it down with rain. as we were sailing along the river, and we got soaked. But she was absolutely, not literally jumping up and down, but she was absolutely in amazement, because she said it just gave her everything she needed for that part of the journey, because it was the sound of the water on the boat, the sound of the sail flapping in the wind, the sound of the rain, the feel of the rain on her face. You know, she said she got everything she needed for that part of the journey. But, you know, you try, if you're going on you go on a cruise or something, and you go on a shore trip, you know, you try getting something individual like that, and you can't do it. You know, you have to go on a bus trip to go and see the sights. Well, that to me isn't what I want to see. I want to see real things.
You know, having taken a few tours of people from the United States to Kenya, and having 30 people plus to handle. Yes. When you got to Kenya, and they all like 6 to 8 people per van. Yeah. Then you had this big convoy of all these people that
you got us a convoy.
Yeah, got a convoy, and you're responsible for all those people having a good time and being safe. And it got so horrific. Like, I would ride in the first bus, and then they would complain, well, you didn't spend any time with us, so, oh, gosh, got to get out of the bus now, everybody stop. Go to the second bus, and then try to remember what bus you've been where and who you talked to when, so that you could make sure you gave equal time to everybody. And then you always had, like, some bullshit person on the bus that would tell the driver, go this way. Yes, and the driver would just do it, and then all of a sudden you get to your destination, you're missing a bus.
Yeah.
And you're like, holy crap, what do I do now? You know, and there was no way you could call, like, as much as I tried, there's no way you could have a personalized experience that way. You just can't.
Well, the personalized thing to me is so interesting what you do, Glynn, because you know, you were talking about the lady on the boat, you know, going out there and in the weather and getting this unique perspective. You know, when Nancy and I travel, a lot of times when we're doing the tourism side of things, we're on a media trip, and we don't do the big group media tours like I know a lot of travel writers do, and it's a very beneficial thing. People go through a community for 3 days or 2 days, really. You get whipped around. You get a taste of it. That's why they call them familiarization trips, fam tours, and off you go. And you've given a little glimpse of something. It gives you that little sizzle, and you're able to tell the world, hey, check this place out. We want to go back because there's so much, which is really, really cool. What we do is a little different because we do video and radio and all that, as you know. But we end up going kind of on a more personalized tour when we travel, whether it's a national park ranger, when our national parks are open, thank you, government, or, you know, you go into the gateway communities, which is what I always want to say. Go there, balance your trips out between the parks and the gateway communities. And if you do have a government shutdown, go to the gateway communities. I guarantee you'll have some, you know, great experiences, and there's always a park near there too. But we end up going with the visitor bureau person, or maybe the restaurant person will take us on a tour of their restaurant and show us something unique. And we've had a couple friends and writers tag on with us and like, oh, my God, you're going somewhere, we want to go with you because you're getting this personalized introduction to the history of this place. And then the people we're with, especially visitor bureaus, and they turn around half the time at the end and go, oh, my God, I just looked at my community in a completely different light. I never thought about this. For you as a tour guide, are you learning through your visitors coming through and the guests that you're taking around because they each have this unique idea of what they want to see and do, whether it's educational, for research, family, or just, hey, I've always wanted to have fish and chips over here. Are you coming away with something new from taking people around?
Yes. I learn from everybody who comes because everybody's different and everybody has got a different view, and they're looking at it from a different place. I mean, I'm looking at it because I'm surrounded by it, and I'm passionate about it, but I don't necessarily look at it in the awe that a lot of my visitors do. You know, I mean, yes, I am absolutely knocked back by going into a cathedral and just looking at the scale of a building that was built by people who basically lived in little mud huts. and they then built this magnificent thing nearly 1,000 years ago. How on earth did they do it? But I'm not looking at it from the same viewpoint that somebody will look at it from a place where they never see anything in their own localities over 150 years old. 90% of the things that I'm surrounded by are really old. My parents' house, parts of my parents' house date back to the 1500s.
Wow.
And I grew up in that house, and my local church is probably 13th century, but there are Norman parts to it. So, the church that my children were baptized in is on a site that's been used for 1,000 years. The church I got married in had Roman bricks in it. It's a Saxon building, so it's well over 1,000 years old. So although I'm surrounded by history, excuse me, I realise that actually, for some people, something 200 years old is absolutely amazing anyway.
Yeah.
So I get that. I also get the differences between the climate that people come from. We're such a small island, and we don't have that much differences in climate. From Scotland to England, there isn't that much. Whereas in America, for instance, if you're in some parts of Texas, you're in a desert, and if you're in some parts of, I don't know where, up in Vancouver area, you've got snow. So what I don't understand, and I can't get my head around, is how everybody comments on how green everywhere is. Because obviously we get rain. We get rain everywhere. And,
well, we don't.
Well, I know the difference from us going from the desert. We go to the desert and we go into California or the Sequoias or a place that has green, and there's this crazy intoxication you get, and it is intoxicating, where you just you are in complete awe. Especially if you're out where we are with big blue skies, desert, and it gets hot, But then in the monsoon season, we go green, and then it's just like, wow, this is crazy. How did the desert do this? How did it go from sand to like a carpet of greenery and wildflowers and, all that cool stuff? But there is this difference. And I think England, there's this thing of what you dream of England being, and you see movies, you read books. And there's something when, I even remember as a kid, I mean, the memories I have of England are so vivid. I mean, I remember all the little buttercups and all the little daisy chains and all these little tiny things are part of who I am now because of going there. And it is this idyllic place. And no matter what you imagine, there's something in England that if you get out into the countryside and, I'm not knocking London because there's so much to learn, but get out, and move to the other side and actually explore, which we did. You and I went all over the place and to these little, you were talking about camping with your family in the earlier segment, and Nancy, I think that's how I got worms. But anyway, it was just one sheep field that we camped in. But anyway, as a kid, whatever. I don't know why I want to say that on here, but I know we talked about that before. But there was all these little places, these little villages, and you always talk about these little villages. And seriously, like one village is right next to the other village, and in an American, you'd think one village, like 3 villages is one town, but it's not. Like you cross the street in another village. They're so quaint.
It is something that, again, I get surprised by, is that, in Norfolk especially, you can generally say that every 3 miles you're going to get another village. Sometimes they're closer than that, because this was a very, very important area for agriculture in medieval times. So obviously there were lots of villages because there were lots of farms and lots of farm workers. So while you're driving along the countryside, you are constantly going through different villages and constantly going past yet another medieval church. And I remember this was one of my early visitors, a lovely lady from Alabama. Her and her husband came over. They came over twice, actually. We was looking around Norwich, and after a little while, I'd stopped pointing out the churches. And she said, you've stopped pointing out the churches. I said, but there's one round every corner. because Norwich has got more medieval churches than any city north of the Alps. We had over 50 medieval churches within the city walls. So, literally, you can see one church from the previous one. Sometimes they're nearly next door to each other, and after a little while, we do get a little bit blasé because we're surrounded by it.
Right, you see it all the time.
It's my visitors bring me back to reality to realise just how lucky I am to be surrounded by this magnificent history. That's amazing.
I want to touch on this in the 10 questions. I don't want to repeat the 10 questions. Everyone can read this in the magazine and on the website, but this is something you, Nancy, and I have talked about for years, and you know that Nancy's embarked on this excellence in tourism, putting the eye back into community, and we're going to be calling you for some radio segments on this because you are a huge, activist as far as I'm concerned in keeping the sense of place, the integrity of an area. And question number 5. What is your pet peeve in regards to the tour operator industry? And you get started and you love your town and you're like, oh, I'm going to do this. And you get started, you're going. And then all of a sudden, what? And then you had to send me what USP means today. I'm like, what's USP? Over here we have UPS. It's a United Parcel Service. I'm like, what? Is this a new thing? And it's unique selling point.
Yeah.
And I said, Nancy, it's like the POV. She's like, no, Glynn is right. USP is everywhere. And I'm like, I know about unique selling point, but I never looked at it that way. But number one, Norfolk Tours obviously has a unique selling point. It's custom tours. No matter who you are, where you're coming from, you get to custom create your tour the way you want it. Glynn takes care of the details. So if you're not into your family history, or maybe your family history isn't there, and you want to go see all the fish chips places, that's what's going to happen. So that's very, very unique. And I think that's such a rewarding thing because there's nothing like getting a local's insider scoop of the place. There's nothing.
Important.
And to get the real point. But you are this activist in keeping that sense of place. Otherwise, quite honestly, you won't have a company, right? If things aren't authentically English.
Well, exactly. I mean, what is the good of going to, I don't know, if we go to New York and someone says to me, right, do you want to have a New York bagel? And I said, oh, yeah, I'd love to try a locally made New York bagel. And I'd go into the bagel shop and the packet says, made in China. Is that what
That's probably happening.
Well,
wouldn't put it past
anybody. I want to go into the shop.
Made in Trumpville.
Number one, I do not want it to be in a plastic wrapper. I want it to come straight off the shelf into a piece of, a paper tissue or something so I can eat it. Yeah. And number two, it needs to be made in New York because it's a New York bagel, or whatever.
That's right.
And that is so important.
Yeah, because nobody would travel if everything
was the
same. There would be no reason to travel. And the tourism industry is huge throughout the world, and it's so important. And it gives people more jobs, diverse jobs, not all jobs belonging to one corporation, and then the corporation closes and you're all out of luck. The safety of a town depends on good tourism handled responsibly. But I get on my soapbox. It's so important. And to have people come visit you means you have to offer who you are. Not you don't want to be Disneyland because Disneyland is Disneyland.
Exactly.
When you go to England, you want English.
Well, okay. So I'm going to bring this back to why Glynn is doing what he's doing.
Yeah. Awesome.
Because it's about living your true passion as anybody in any kind of business. Whatever you're doing, you should be following your passion. Yeah. And it's the same thing for the destinations and the communities. It's just not and who wants to live in a community who wants to live there if it's not, you know what I mean? If you don't have a story or identity and you just become the plastic wrapper of China.
Exactly.
Which is the Trump family.
It's no good. It's absolutely no good. I mean, I went to Stratford-upon-Avon with some visitors because that's where they wanted to go. And actually, I didn't really enjoy it myself because it was just too touristy. You know, it was wrapped up for tourists. And yes, Shakespeare's house is lovely. The church where he was baptized is a beautiful building, and you know this, that, and the other. But it was just too marketed. You know, it was too plastic. And I just like real things. You know, I like to go into a village museum or a town museum that is not run properly. It's run by a couple of volunteers who are sitting behind the desk doing their knitting or something, because they're real people. You know, you don't want to go to a great big spick and span museum because it's probably too generic. If you want to go and find out about the local things, you need to go into the local pub. But you don't want to go into the local pub if it's a chain. If it's a chain pub that sells food that comes out of a microwave and sells beer that comes from, well, who knows where. You know, you want to go into a local pub that sells local beer and local food. And if it's a little bit rough around the edges, then so what? Because you're getting local service, you're getting local stuff.
See,
you know, and 9 times out of 10, I find actually that the local pubs are so much better because the people who run them own the businesses, so they actually care about the customers. Whereas, you know, I've been into some chain pubs where basically the staff are just there to earn money, and they really don't care whether you come back tomorrow or not. So, you know, you just get everything. So for me, everything is just real, and I like real things.
Yeah. It's way more fun when you say they're a little rough around the edges. That is actually...
That's authentic, real.
That's the experience we actually want.
Exactly.
You know, because then it's memorable. You know, the chain thing, I get it. They're branding and making their identity known and all that, blah, blah. You know, so you're all the same all over the world, and who cares now? Because you're not unique.
Well, you don't have tourism if you become a chain store. There's no tourism. No. That the entire industry would flop if you didn't protect your natural environment, your history, and sense of place. In some areas, you know, we always talk about the two sides of the track. Here's the la-di-da people on this side of the track, and then here, this is, you know, the side that none of us can afford anything side. And, you know, there's that thing. But now in tourism, you see, like, the two sides of the track. Like, here's the historic downtown, and here's the authentic side, and then over here we have our big box stores and our, you know, our chain stores and things that, you know, some people really, we're not going to get away from it, but it's there. You know, it's on the other side, though, so that you can go, this is your industrial business, and I call big box stores industrial because that is what it is. And then on this side is where you can go shop from a store where someone's actually chosen what they want to put in their store instead of, like, you know, we're going to do Walmart.
Have you ever got on a plane and flew to another country to go to Sears?
Yeah, we don't want to go, I don't want to see the same thing.
Exactly.
And that's why people travel. So I think it's so important that you are an advocate, I know, with buy local in Norfolk, right?
Yes.
So is that something that's like nationwide in England, or is it really something that started in Norfolk?
Well, there are other groups that try to encourage people to support local businesses, but buy local is really individual. Excuse me. Because we test our members. One of the main points before you can become a member of Buy Local is you have to give us 5 local businesses that you use within your business. And by doing that, you're guaranteeing that your money is going around locally.
Wow.
Because it's no good saying, right, that's a local business. If I, as a local business, spent all my money in the cash and carry, it wouldn't actually help the local economy at all. Even though I'm a local business, I don't actually put money back into the local community. So the fact that my printer, a small local independent business, my solicitor is a small local solicitor, my accountant is a small local accountant, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. My website provider lives in King's Lynn. Another one of my website providers lives in a village about 4 miles away, and that's a husband and wife team who just do websites and marketing and things. You know, so that is the sort of thing that we need, because unless the money is going into the community, then that's no good.
Yeah.
If it's just going out of the community again, you might as well go and buy from Tesco's or Walmart or whatever.
Yeah.
So that makes Buy Local Norfolk completely different in that we test our members. We don't accept franchisees. We don't accept, we don't accept people who don't live in the county or within 50 miles of their business. So if you have a business in Norfolk but you live in London, then I'm sorry, you can't become a member because you don't actually spend your money in the community because you don't live here. So, there are so many criteria that we set that mean that the money is going to stay local. And that is the key. If we can keep money going around the local economy will flourish. And that's what
because you're
about.
allowing visitors to come in. Because if you kept the, you know what I mean, you got the local people coming in from another country or another area will bring money in, and then it keeps building locally in. So you need that part of the equation, which is what you do, which is so cool.
Yep.
Bring people in, show, hey, this is authentic, real. And I think that's such an important part of, again, we don't have tourism without that. You don't go to another community just to have another Subway sandwich.
No.
You don't do that,
No.
So I think what you're doing is so exciting about it. I wanted to ask you also, you talk about inspirations. You talk about your inspirations being, your family, the area, and, family past and present. But in one of your questions, we asked you if you could invite 3 people, live or passed on, for dinner. Who would they be? And I know we've talked about some of them, but I thought that, Nurse Edith, am I getting her name? Cavell would be on there. That she would be on your list, but she didn't make it. But if we had number 4, would she make it on your list?
No, I'm afraid. Well, yes, I suppose she would. I don't know. I don't know if she would make it on my list. I think, although she's a very important lady locally, she was so recent that I know a lot about her already. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
With Nelson, there's lots of books written about him, but I actually would like to know more about the real bloke. I want to hear what he is really like. I don't want to
Lord
hear
Nelson.
what
Admiral Lord Nelson. Yeah, I just want to make sure.
I don't want to hear what the biographers wrote about him. I want to hear what he was like as a bloke. And that's what I want to know. And it's the same with Boadicea, or as she's called nowadays, Boudica. There's such a lot of stuff written about her, but I would just like to talk to her about what her life was really like. Because obviously we're talking 2,000 years ago nearly, so a lot of stuff that is written has just been handed down, and a lot of it is probably very, very well embellished. So I'd like to actually, talk to the horse's mouth, so to speak, and actually hear what she was really about. And the other bloke is my direct ancestor who lived in the village that I grew up in, because he just suddenly appeared in the village, and I just want to know where he came from.
And his last name is Bear, and maybe that's why you like bears in Canada.
He just walked in one day.
Yeah, where did he come from?
That was actually my mother's maiden name.
Wow.
What would be interesting as a TV series would be for people to come back and read their own biographies. Probably go, I never said that. I didn't do that.
I know. I wanted to go back to Lord Nelson. So is Nelson's column, that landmark in England, is that Lord Nelson?
Yes.
Okay, I had to make sure.
He's a Norfolk bloke, you see.
So now he's but he's a national hero too,
Oh yes, of course. He's one of the most important national heroes that you can hear about, really. But I would say that because he comes from Norfolk, so I'm a bit biased probably.
Now let's talk about going back into being a tour operator. You've been doing it for 8 years. And so what are some of the challenges you face doing this? I know that you've tackled on making sure, buy local Norfolk and, the sense of place. You've grown because you've listened to what your clients want, and that, you're going, hey, no one's doing what I'm doing. I'm going to take that day. I'm going to seize the day and do what I need to do here, and why not? But what have been some of the harder things for you learning this business?
The most difficult thing for me is to keep organised, especially when it comes to paperwork and money. I'm really, really bad at dealing with money. In fact, I had a couple over a year and a half ago, and I did some extra work for them. I did a couple of extra trips and an extra day, and they'd already paid me for what they'd already booked, but I hadn't actually charged them for all the extra work, and I didn't actually do that until last week, and that's a year and a half ago. So you see, I'm really, really bad. I had I had a man over from Australia in September, I think it was, and I hadn't actually sent him a bill until last week because I trust him. He's a nice bloke. Well, these other people are nice, but that's why I'm too trusting, I think. I just trust people, and I know they'll pay me, so I don't worry. And then I forget, and then I remember, So I think, being organised and getting my accounts sorted would be the biggest thing that I need to button down on.
I encourage you to do
Listen,
that.
I have Nancy. Nancy loves that department.
No, I don't love it.
And no, because let me tell you,
I learned.
You need Nancy there.
No, I tell you, running a magazine in South Africa was incredibly difficult, especially when it came to collecting money. Now we kind of take our money up front just so we can keep organized and not put in work and then be really disappointed later. And I learned it the hard way, but I agree with you, because that is, unless you are an accountant and that's your compassion and deal that you like, your passion, for the rest of us, that's the part of the business none of us like.
Right, it sucks. No. It sucks. I hate the money part too. I hate it. But you have to. The world does not move unless a sale is made that day.
So this is how I look at it. My grandmother taught me, and she was from Hull, as you know. She taught me, if you don't like what's on your dinner plate, eat the thing you hate the most first.
Yes.
And get it out of the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
And do you know what? I still leave the thing I like the most until last. I still do that.
That's a British thing, then.
Yeah, because that's why you have dessert.
I still do that. Even when I was a child, I don't know if you remember, but in the in the 60s and 70s, you could buy tins of beans with little baby sausages in them.
Oh, yeah.
And if ever I had them, I would put the little baby sausages on the side of my plate and eat them last. And I don't eat them anymore, but I always eat my favourite thing last.
That's it. That's why dessert. That's true. Well,
yeah.
Listen, that's why they start you off with a salad. Most people are like, I don't want to eat a salad. I personally love the salad, but it's like, who wants that? And then it's like, or the soup, and you never know what's in the soup, and then and then you proceed through the meal, and you hope it's okay, and then you go, okay, if I can get through this, I'll get to my dessert at the end.
But that's the reward.
The dessert. That's what that's the whole reasoning behind it. Then when you become that you get, especially England, I had to learn about all the different knives and forks and where your serviette or napkin gets placed. Your water glass goes here, your spoon goes at the top, but not, the teaspoon does not go there, and the little fork on the outside, and the whole thing. Then there's dessert etiquette, there's all of this. Tea etiquette, all this etiquette. And you're like, okay, the first thing you want to do when you turn 18, that's it. I'm eating dessert first. And then you start doing it, and within 2 days you realize that doesn't work for you. That's like you just go back.
There's something you've just said there that I just find it very difficult to believe, and that is that you actually have a glass of water. Come on. You don't drink.
No, I have a glass of water right here. Yeah. Right here. Honestly.
It hasn't got grape juice in it as well, hasn't it? Been fermented.
No, but I have the champagne on the side. But we have water.
Okay, I'm going to be really honest. We both have a tall glass of water in front of us and a glass of champagne. Mm-hmm. Okay. the champagne's almost gone and the water's pretty much full.
Yeah, I guess.
It's the truth. Look at your water.
I know.
You haven't had one
now I have
sip.
to have a sip
See?
of water. See,
I haven't had one sip, so don't even.
I'm going to start choking now if I don't drink the water. You know how that goes. Okay, so Glynn, someone gets into a tour company. They're thinking about doing it anywhere in the world. They're an independent entrepreneur saying, I'm going to do my own business. And by the way, there's a whole bunch of us just doing our own businesses in the world, okay? And governments don't look at us. They don't care about us. Just saying.
But we are the backbone.
And we are the
of
backbone.
Our respective countries.
Mm-hmm.
We are the backbone.
Yeah. And I don't believe society or like the business network has actually they've forgotten that we exist. Solopreneurs, that the industry, the main industry has just gone like if you're a home-based business or if you're, a small business, if you're not, 10 employees or more over here in this country anyway,
count. You're
not a business, But then if they find out you have a business, then they want you to pay what the big people do. It's like crazy.
Yes.
But anyway, is that like that in England too?
Yes, right so.
Okay, so what are some tips for someone getting started?
Right. If you're getting started in any business, make sure you're passionate about it. That has to be number one.
Yeah.
Sure. Don't do it just because someone else tells you that's what you ought to do. And just ask for help. Join lots of networking groups. Well, first of all, test out lots of networking groups and join any that are free and join any that have got people in that you like. Don't join the ones that are too pushy, or if you don't like the way they do things, don't do it. But the most important thing is to ask for help, because people are out there. People are so helpful, especially in the small business community. I'm not being funny. I'm not shouting about me. But if one of my people who I know from business world rang up and had a problem, I'd get in the car and go and try and help them. That is what it's all about. Small businesses will help each other. And if you need help, all you've got to do is ask. Mm-hmm. And people are just so brilliant, But I think number one is passion. If you haven't got passion for what you're doing, don't do it.
Exactly.
No, because it's too hard.
No, it's too hard.
It's like people quit their job, do their own business so that they can call their own hours. Well, let me tell you what your hours are.
Yeah. No, but that depends on how you're running your business, and you can do both. It just you got to do what you got to do to make your dreams happen, and sometimes you have to balance to maybe working for somebody else while you're doing your other career, and sometimes you have to do that. Some people can't do that. I'm a very 100% all-in person. I can't straddle two things like that. I just can't, because my heart, it's like where your heart goes. You have to do where your heart is, It's just the way it is, but everyone's different.
Don't be afraid to change. I've had to change what I do, but it's something that I still love doing. But, don't just, if say, for instance, I had said, right, I am just going to do Norfolk, then I have turned down lots and lots of business. So as I've had people request, different things, then not only am I learning, but my business is expanding.
Right.
And also I'm having more fun because I'm seeing places that I've never been to before.
See, that's so cool.
So that's it. It's be flexible in your business. Last question or statement even. Okay, so we always ask people if they could switch careers for a day, what would you choose? And so many people go, well, I love this. I never want to do anything else. And I'm like, listen, it's for a day. So I learned something new. Go find, it's for a day,
Yes.
But I've never had anybody say I want to be the prime minister.
I love it. I vote for you, Glynn.
Yeah. Well, I think that the whole system needs to be changed. We need to stop. We need to stop party politics. Party politics cannot ever work. We've seen it for 2 centuries that party politics doesn't work. All we need to have is a group of people who are elected locally to go to a central place and then have a discussion. That's all we need to have. Every other business or every other organization, it works by a committee of people who get together around a table and they take a vote on things. If government was run in the same way, we wouldn't have a problem, because people would be talking about their own localities. They would be sticking up for the people who voted for them, and they wouldn't have to toe the party line. And that is just totally ridiculous. I don't know who invented the system, but really and truly, he needs to have a smack, because it's useless.
I agree with you. I mean, look at our country. We have a bunch of senators and congressmen yelling and screaming at each other, and a president who can't make up his mind about anything. And what's the point?
I know,
exactly.
The whole thing. It's sad. But you know what? Us individuals can all keep going with what we do. We can continue traveling, uniting, and communicating as best we can, as long as we can, because the governments do change some of that stuff depending on where you live, in all honesty. So I know we're closed here in America as of today, but the government may be shut down, but we're not. And and we just want to keep supporting. You think about all the people that work in the government. You think about all the park rangers, and there's a lot of first responders in some areas too. So there's just a lot of things that, we have to take individual control, and that means we have to start thinking and doing. And Glynn, thank you so much for talking with us about what you're doing in your business. I think it's so exciting what you're doing, and we look forward to having you be part of some of our tourism excellence panel shows coming up with this whole series that we're doing, because it is important to keep the sense of place. And community is a big part of keeping that, and it's a win-win for both sides. Everyone, again, norfolk-tours.co.uk. Also, you can read Glynn's articles and listen to his past interviews if you go to blendradioandtv.com, look in our expert department, or just type in Glynn, and you'll be able to read his 10 questions in our February-March Parks and Travel magazine, which you can get at nationalparktraveling.com. Glynn, we have a song for you. We're going to close with some music from England, and I think you were actually on a show with Robbie Boyd. He was busking out in London, and now he's traveling the world and doing all these amazing things. Yeah, no, literally. Every time I see him on Instagram, he's in Indonesia, then he's in Australia, then he's in Norway. It's crazy. He's just awesome. Gone for it. Ended up on BBC with Graham Norton, all kinds of, we love Graham Norton. Anyway.
Yes, we do.
Thank you for all this great TV that England provides. But here it is. And I feel like this song is perfect for you because of the title, Under My Skin. And to me, that's what you have, what you do under your skin. Travel, getting people out to see their history, and, you have it under your skin. It's your passion. So that's the song for you today.
Lovely
all right.
To
so
talk to you.
Thank you so much, Glynn. We'll talk soon.
Indeed. Cheers, bye.
Bye-bye. Everybody, here it is, Under My Skin by Robbie Boyd. It's off of his album So-Called Life, and you can go to robbie-boyd.com, and that's Robbie with 2 B's and an IE.
Reach for now, and if it's meant to you've had.